Ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seat, we've got another round here as we introduce the candidates for Pasadena Unified School Districts 2, 4, and 6. A reminder again that these questions, of course, come from the community that were put together by the Pasadena Latino Coalition. Some of the most important questions of this community and what you guys would have to deal with when you join the school board. Candidates that are running for the PUSD are here to my right. Patrick Callahan. Did I say it improperly? Of all the names, I said that one wrong? Cahalan, excuse me. Roy Bulgurjian and Larry Torres. So thank you guys for being here with us. You are each going to begin with 1 minute to share something about yourself, why you're running for office, and why you are here today. You've got the microphone, so you can go ahead and start.
Check. Okay, great. First, thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Larry Torres. I'm a longtime teacher. I've been teaching in LA Unified for 29 years now. I'm a parent of a PUSD student. My youngest daughter is a junior at Pasadena High School. And when I saw that this seat was opening up, I thought, you know, my experience, my background would lend me to do a good job in this seat. I have graduate degrees in education, educational administration, and curriculum development from Harvard and UCLA. I've been very active in the school site councils at all of my daughter's schools since 1999, and I feel quite well prepared to take on this new challenge.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Roy Bulgurjian, residente del Pasadena durante más de 30 años. Originalmente soy de Beirut, Líbano. Tengo una licenciatura en Economía y Matemáticas de famosa Universidad de Beirut. Y también en Estados Unidos tengo maestra en Educación Multicultural y he terminado con todas mis clases para un grado doctorado y espero terminar mi tesis el próximo año. Gusto mucho lengua español porque es lenguaje romántico. Y otra razón es que vivimos en Los Ángeles y es muy importante hablar y saber español. Era profesor de escuelas preparatorias y primarias y ahora soy profesor de matemática en Mount Sierra College en Monrovia.
My name is Pat Cahalan. I have been an involved parent in the district for quite some time now. We have two children at Longfellow. My eldest, Jack, who's right over there, is 5th grader, and Hannah is in 3rd grade. Jack's about to go to middle school. We've been involved since Jack was in kinder. I have been on the Longfellow School Site Council for 3 years, and I've been involved down at the District Advisory Council for an equal amount of time. I've also served on the LCAP work group, and I have a fairly decent idea of how the district itself operates. So, thank you. I have a degree in mathematics and a degree in information systems and technology. I'm currently working on my doctorate program, like Roy is. Did you mention that in your? No. I don't speak Spanish. I believe that I have a good knowledge of how parents view the district, of how the concerned parent groups interact with the district, and a fairly good idea of how the board itself operates. Time's up.
All right, so we've got 9 questions for each of you to answer. We're going to give you 60 seconds each. We'll begin with you, Mr. Cahalan. The first question is, what has been one topic concern that you learned while running for office that came from individuals with a perspective different from your own?
I think the most interesting one that came up at one of my candidate coffees, one of the parents pointed out that the school district does not have a very operational sports program, and that sounds like something that's an odd one to emphasize. But even though I went to a very sports-happy school myself when I was in high school, it hadn't actually occurred to me how much sports matters for school spirit for a lot of the people that are in PUSD. I have been involved in circles with parents who are interested in the arts or interested in music or interested in science, but most of the sports that we've been involved in have all gone through community organizations such as Brotherhood Community or AYSO or Little League, and it actually had not occurred to me that the sports program itself is something that also needs work. So as far as talking to individuals, that would be the first one.
Mine was parental involvement. I was told that, then I did the research, the lower income families have tendency to not be involved for two reasons. First, they are worried that do they want us to be involved? And the answer is yes, we do want you to be involved, very much so. And we want community involvement. So I'm going to pursue that, and we're going to go into the community and make bridges with many organizations and parents and convince them to be involved as much as they can. Because research has shown that the more involved the parents are with the kids, the better the results in many ways.
I think for me, we were asked a question at a forum about the money going to schools and the local community or control funding formula, and that it appeared not as much money was going to schools that had been going in previous years. And I gave an answer, but I really wasn't happy with that. And so, you know, this whole process is such a learning thing. And so I went back and spoke to some school board members and spoke to, did some research and found that the funding formula that the state sets out is supposed to go towards certain targeted populations, the English learner population, low socioeconomic groups, and foster children. And it appears that this year, because of the new system that's set up, that at least in Pasadena High School, we didn't get as much as we should have.
Thank you for keeping an eye on the time there. The second question, you can start with this one if you like. Students from Pasadena Unified have expressed concern regarding the quality of their teachers, school lunches, and the state of some of the school facilities. So what do you see as some critical issues at our schools, and what do you plan to do to address them?
Repeat the question, please.
Sure. Students from Pasadena Unified have expressed concern regarding the quality of their teachers, school lunches, and the state of some school facilities. What do you see as some of the critical issues at our schools, and what do you plan to do to address them?
Of course, it all boils down to funding. And I've always said this, we're going to pursue funding in many ways. First, we're going to try to increase enrollment and retention rates. So the ADA average daily attendance will rise, and we'll get more funding. And as I said before, we're going to go into the community and reach out to a lot of people and organizations. And once we have that funding, then we'll have better teacher professional development programs. We'll have better spending in the schools, and we will implement all the quality programs better.
I think one of the frustrations that's been plaguing the district for the last several years is it doesn't appear everybody's on the same page. And I think a lot of that has to do with the superintendent turnover. Because when you turn over leadership as often as PUSD has done the last several years, lots of things happen because of that. Each superintendent has a new vision, a new direction that they want to take the school district, which takes time to implement, time to put people into place, time to find sources of funding and those sorts of things. And so when you have changes in leadership at the top, it creates great confusion for those below. I serve in LA Unified. It feels like an elevator full of superintendents lately, and it really does damage, I think, to the district. And I think it's really important that the board and the superintendent be on the same page.
I can speak first to the facilities question. I agree that the students are right to be concerned about the state of the facilities. The Measure TT bond measure was supposed to fast track a lot of facilities improvement projects, and the rate at which those projects have been designed, put out to bid, completed, has just not really been acceptable. We no longer have a director of facilities as of last week, so the position is now open. I'm hoping that the opening up will give us a good high quality candidate who can focus on facilities, and we can get the Measure TT money back on track. So that would be the first instance. As far as the qualities of teachers go, the teachers that I have seen I think are quite remarkably good. That doesn't necessarily mean that every teacher in the school district is good, but the ones that I have seen have been quite good teachers. As far as the school lunches go, I have never in my life met a kid that thought that school lunches were good. Oh, sorry, don't mean to end on a on a joke note, but
I recall the pizza day being great. So, next question, number 3, and you can start if you like. Identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, student needs, state and federal law, staff considerations, and your personal values and beliefs to determine how to vote on the issue.
I think the one that comes to mind most recently is the decision to make San Rafael declared surplus property, which greatly upset the San Rafael community. The history of that is probably far too long to get into a 1-minute answer, but due to the fact that the state had reported that the site was seismically unsound, there was a great concern amongst the board members that they would not be able to upgrade the facility, nor would they be able to improve it in a meaningful way. The parent community, I think, was mostly concerned about knowing that the school programs that they were enrolled in, the dual language immersion program, was going to continue, and they did not want a board vote to be cast upon the status of San Rafael until there was a plan in place that they could see that would address their concerns. And the board decided to vote to close that, or to declare that site surplus in spite of that. And I don't think that was handled very well.
The question, I'm sorry, the question is a board decision that I liked?
Any board decision.
Any
board decision that you felt strongly about, one way or the other.
Okay. I think recently I was very troubled by how the school board decided to look at the funding formula that was just in place. The state changed the Title I requirements. That's money given to certain targeted populations of students. And what happened is that the board decided that they would create a new way to allocate the money to the schools. And they had existing committees that were already in place. I think the school advisory committees, the district advisory committee would have been a very good place to house that. And by creating a new committee and handpicking folks who would be on that committee, it smacked of, and I'm not saying that this is what happened, but it felt like it was a foregone conclusion of what the funding was going to look like. And again, when it thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if I can go back as far back as districting decision, I was happy with the districting decision because that gave me a chance to be a candidate. Another one was Collaborate Pasadena. I was very happy because it opens new doors, even though it's not enough, but it's a new start. It's a good start. And now we can expand on that and go not only PUSD and city, we can go PUSD and all the organizations, all the community, all the parents, and that was a good thing.
Next question, we can start over there. What do you see as some of the biggest problems in proceeding with work funded by Measure TT?
You know, a lot of it, I think, has to do with transparency. You know, it feels like, especially at Pasadena High School, where I've been waiting 3 years for something to actually happen. And we get told time and again at school site council meetings that these things are going to take place and things are happening, but it never actually seems to occur. And I think it would be very beneficial to the community who's providing the taxpayer money to provide timelines and to provide sort of a list of expectations of things we have done, things we have yet to done, and to allow the community in to be able to see that process.
I don't want to say anything negative. What I can say is that once we're up there, we're going to look at it much better, and we're going to make sure that we spend efficiently.
The Measure TT website is unacceptably out of date in terms of the way the expenditures are reported. There's also no real roll-up presentation that is accessible to people who don't have a construction background. So there's no way for a normal everyday person to look at the website and see what the current state is of all of the Measure TT projects, which that really needs to be changed. As Larry said, people have to trust the process for them to even buy into it in the first place. I think speaking also as someone who's been on a school site that's been told again and again, you're going to get your new kitchen next year, you're going to get your new kitchen next year, you're going to get your new kitchen next year. And I've talked to principals the principal at Jackson told me that they were going to get new windows next year, 3 years ago, and they couldn't have a summer program that they wanted to have in their library because they were going to get new windows that summer. So the reporting really needs to be done a lot better.
Mr. Bulgorgian, if you want to start with this one, how do you think LCAP and LCFF funds should be allocated?
Currently, most of the funds, I've said this many times before, most of the funds were spent on Common Core, preparing curriculum, training teachers. I know there's a list of expenditures or list of needs that we need to present, but as of now, the most money was spent on Common Core, and we are ahead of many other districts. We have the curriculum in place, we have the training in place, and we are, again, as I said, much ahead than other districts, and we're going to make sure that they are implemented better.
I'm going to target this question on foster children. The district currently has about 400 kids that are within the foster care system district-wide. They are funding, again, this is one of the targeted groups, and they're funding $53,000 for this population. And one of the things they want to do is they want to hire a person, and I don't know what person that's going to be. I think it's a clerical person that's supposed to write individual plans for each of the foster care kids. The problem with that is the 400 kids that begin at the beginning of the year aren't the same kids that are there at the end of the year, because foster care kids move. And many of those kids move through school after school after school. We need to do a much, much better job. The city of Compton spends more per foster care student by half than we do for our foster care population. That needs to change.
This came up at the LCAP meeting 2 weeks ago. There was a lot of discussion about the way that the funds were being distributed, and one of the difficulties is the way the reporting is done. It's not clear which level of governance is responsible for making funding decisions. So if you look at one line item in the LCFF expenditures for this current year, you will see a total figure that actually reflects how much the district has dictated should be spent on that one line item, how much the individual school site councils have dictated should be spent on that one line item, et cetera, et cetera. As a result, it makes it very difficult for the individual school sites to understand how their schools compare to other schools. The LCFF funding model itself, I think, is a vast improvement over the way that things used to be done, particularly for our district. But in order for people to really be able to assess how well that money is being spent, we need to do a much better job of explaining what the total expenditures are at each school site.
We'll start with you. What is your vision of special education programs that would provide a rigorous academic program and special supports for students with diverse needs?
We've talked a little bit about special ed at several forums now. One of the difficulties in addressing it in a very short period of time is that special ed covers a wide variety of conditions. You have developmentally disabled children who need individual learning plans and specific developmental educational plans that don't relate to the same sort of academic outcomes that someone of their age would be expected to have. And then you have kids who have physical limitations that affect their ability to learn in a regular classroom, so they're qualified as special ed kids, but they don't have developmental problems. They just need hearing aids, or they need to sit in the right area of the classroom. So coming up with a blanket uniform process for describing how special ed works is very, very difficult. I know from talking to special ed parents in the district that there's two truisms. The first one is you can't get special ed support in private school, and the second one is you have to fight for what you actually deserve when you're in the public school system.
I've said this before, and I'm very familiar with at least my nephew. I have a nephew who is autistic, and I'm with him every Sunday, and he was at a public school, but eventually the parents had to take him out, and now he goes to Frostig, and they pay an arm and a leg for him. I feel we need to provide better care, better service, but on the other hand, contrary to what I knew before, I found out that we spent 25% of our budget on special education, so that's also something to look at. And most of the expenditure is on lawsuits and legal fees. So we need to find a better, more efficient way of handling that situation.
You know, one of the experiences my daughter had was being in an inclusion class. And I think one of the things that I really want to look at with special education is not segregating them and not creating, you know, because what my daughter found and what many children find when everybody's in the classroom, everybody learns from each other. And that's the society we live in. And we want to create, as best as we can, communities where everybody's pushing everybody together rather than trying to exclude kids. You know, within that classroom, there were several autistic children and other people with various developmental issues, but everybody learned from each other in there, and I think all the children at the end of that class were better off. My daughter is now 20, and she wants to work with autistic children because of that program, which is a really neat thing.
Do you want to start this one?
Sure.
In the 1990s, there was discussion of building additional elementary schools in northwest Pasadena. Open enrollment was established in 2002, and since then a number of schools have closed, most notably in North Pasadena. There is current discussion of yet more school closures in the district. Describe how you would determine which schools, if any, should be closed, and describe any modifications you see that could take place in the current open enrollment process that would make less likely the decision to close schools in North Pasadena.
See, the question is 1 minute. How do you expect us to answer in 1 minute?
Succinctly.
All right. I always want to give the example of Roosevelt. Roosevelt was losing enrollment until the principal, Juan Ruelas, very good principal, and he found especially someone, I will name him, give his name, I don't know if he wants it, Bill Babcock. He helps a lot. And others helped. So this principal turned the school into a higher enrollment. He made it blue ribbon. So the principal and the staff have a lot to do. I don't think that we can, I'll say it in another question, the answer. So I believe that principals and the parental involvement will play a big role in getting back numbers.
Yeah. Nobody goes on the school board to close schools. I mean, that's not something that you run on. I think that when you look at schools, you want to look at the vitality of the school. You want to look and see, is that school providing the experience that you feel like is necessary to support the school. When I became a classroom teacher, my first day, a colleague said to me, here's what you want to do. You want to put the child at the center, and all of your decisions need to be based around the best needs of that child. What will help that child the best? And so that's something that has held me in very good stead. And so when you look at difficult problems like this, you need to look at the child and say, is that child at any particular school, is the environment dynamic enough? Is it synergistic enough that child can get everything that we as parents, as community folks, want that child to get out of that place? And that's really where you start.
Closing a school in any location puts an enormous burden on the families that are attending that school. It may come to pass that it's fiscally unjustifiable to keep a school site open at its current level of enrollment, but the first strategy that every school district should take when they get to that point is to look at ways that schools have managed to turn around their enrollment problem in their own district in recent history, and then try and implement those same changes at that site. So we have a number of schools that had very poor enrollment very, very recently, and they have turned themselves around in an incredibly short period of time. Jackson is one that springs to mind immediately. So here's a school where people kept talking about, we need to close Jackson, it's not big enough, it has declining enrollment, it's not ever going to get any bigger. And then this year, they have 419 kids there, some of which go to Jackson from outside PUSD because it has a dual language immersion program and a STEM magnet. So combining those sorts of special programs can help those school sites.
Question number 8. Who would want to start on this one? Okay. Why did you decide to run for office? Who were some of your first supporters in that decision? And who have been some of your primary donors?
Oh, in the shortest possible answer, I started thinking about running. Well, I threw my hat in the ring for the appointed position that Michael Aran is currently sitting in, back when they had an appointed position. That was the first time I considered myself capable of providing some sort of advantage on the school board. This summer, I started toying with the idea when I heard again that Tom Selinsky was not going to run and that Renata Cooper may not run. And I said, well, we need someone who's going to be dedicated to the school district to be serving in District 4, and I think I can do that job. So my current supporters, in addition to the organizations that have endorsed me, most of whom have promised money but have not yet delivered money, most of my donations come from family and parents that I know that are actually in the district. The majority of my donations have been $100 or less, and they've come from Longfellow PTA parents or school site council people that I know.
I can say the reason for me running, not the endorsement, but it's PEF. PEF was the reason. They invited me to be principal for a day, and I went there, and I was one of those people who thought that Unified School District is full of gangs. When I went there, I was thinking in my head, what will I do if the fighting starts? The Armenian gang will be on one side, Latino gang will be on the other side, African Americans. But I was pleasantly shocked, and I was converted. So I became an advocate of public education, and now I'm running for the board.
I think it was mostly Michael Aran called me and thought that I would be a good candidate. She had actually asked me 10 years ago to run, and I had little children at the time and said, I just, can't possibly do that. So when she said she was stepping down and thought I would make a good candidate, that I really started to take a look at that, and I talked to my wife, and boy, talk about turning your world upside down. Some of my donors, my sister, or family members, and most of my money also comes from parents that I have worked with throughout my time in the schools, and I've had various endorsements from political clubs and the realtors of Pasadena, and it's been it's been a lot. We have met, or I have met, some extraordinary folks as you've walked through this. So it's been quite a day, quite a process.
Last question for all three of you. It's the same question we've asked of all the candidates today. It is a very important one. If elected, will you commit to serving the full term?
Yes.
If nothing bad happens, like God forbid something bad happens, yes.
Yes.
Finally, guys, I want to give you each 60 seconds for your final say as these folks here in the next little more than 30 days will decide who's going to take this position.
I'd like to thank you all for coming. The turnout at the various forums has been varied, and we would always like to see more people. So I'm glad for everyone that did show up today. Thank you for your time and your consideration of the school district, and for listening to us. I've sat through several candidate forums with these two gentlemen now, and they both seem to be pretty decent fellas. It's just not enough time in these forums to tell you everything that I would like to tell you about the district and about how I feel about it and why I think you should vote for myself or either of these two for that matter. But I encourage everyone who has any questions at all about the district or what my views are for it to contact me outside of the forum. I am happy to answer any questions that you have. The harder the question, the better, because the people that ask the hard questions are the ones that care the most.
Before I became an educator, I was a diamond dealer, making good money. And then I made the mistake of volunteering to teach ESL, English as a Second Language, of low-income immigrants. That was when I got the bug, and eventually I became an educator. And I've said this before. I used to drive a Porsche 911 Turbo. I went down to driving Nissan Sentra. And would I do it again? I keep saying absolutely, because the students are much more precious than the diamonds and the jewelry I was dealing with. And I'm happy, and I'll continue.
In 1985, when I was a graduate student, I had the opportunity to hear Cesar Chavez talk, and he came for he was doing another boycott on grapes, and I was a little upset because I really like grapes, and I hadn't eaten grapes for a long time. But I had an opportunity afterwards to go talk to him, and I thanked him. You know, he's been a hero of mine for a long time, and thanked him for, the hard work he'd done. But also, my father was a migrant, and and he's sitting here in the audience watching me, and I wanted to thank him on behalf of the Latino community. When I look back at I'm not going to have enough time to say this. Anyway, school is incredibly important. And we need to figure out a way to find pathways for every student to be successful. And that's really what I'm about. And that's what I will spend my time on the board doing. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here today. A lot of information with all the panels that we had. A lot to be considered to vote when it comes on March 10th. Encouraging to see a lot of people that came out, too, throughout the day as we had folks here for all the different discussions. Can I do that? Do we have a list? I don't have a problem doing it. It's fact, is it not? We work with facts at NBC. Let's see. These are the ones who didn't show up. Evan Dagger. Jean Masuda. Germán Acevedo. Cheryl Turner. Marcela Rojas. Steve Madison, but he called. He was planning on being here, but he got caught up on the East Coast. He's stuck on the tarmac. These? Nope, these were here. Yeah. There was one more. There we go. And Sandra Saraganian. We'll find out what happens on March 10th then, right? Please.
So before we end our forum, I just want to thank you for attending, and especially NBC4 Southern California and John Cadiz Clemac for the 4 hours. So thank you for that. And on behalf of the Latino Coalition, we'd like to present this to you as a gift of appreciation. Thank you to our candidates that spent the day with us and our audience. Thank you to my colleagues at the Pasadena Latino Coalition for all their hard work in putting this together, especially Roberta, who was hiding behind there. And Sandra, who was doing all the timekeeping. So thank you for keeping us on task. So with that, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you very much.